For you tonight is the December travel period, and this December, despite the COVID-19 pandemic, traffic volumes on national roads are already seeing a surge. But before you hit the road, there are several things that you need to do to ensure that you do so safely, especially under the COVID-19 conditions that we're traveling under this year. Very unique, nothing that's happened before. Let's speak to the Automobile Association's Layton Beard now, who's joining me by phone, I believe. Layton, very good evening. Great to have you on. So what's top of mind this year as we travel under extraordinary conditions?
Hi, Thembekile. Good to speak to you again. Look, I think the most important thing is the same message we have every year, and that's obey the rules of the road. Obviously, if you're going to be traveling and stopping along the way, make sure that you adhere to all the COVID regulations, wearing a mask, sanitizing, obviously social distancing as far as you possibly can. So we would advise motorists that if they're on the road, those for us would be the two main things that they need to adhere to. And then obviously, before you pack anything into the car, pack the right attitude for the road. Make sure that you're geared for the trip and that you're mentally ready and fit to tackle specifically a long journey.
And I'd imagine that, Layton, one sector, one industry that's going to have to be extra careful as far as COVID protocols will be the fuel stations, because a lot of people will be stopping there, using the restrooms, stopping to buy refreshments and the like.
You're absolutely correct. I mean, speaking from personal experience, Thembekile, I came back from the Drakensberg last week, and I stopped along the road. And I must say that the fuel stations that I stopped at were all very much aware of the dangers of COVID-19. They were only letting in, obviously, the correct amount of people into the area. There were sanitizing stations all over. Even in the restrooms, there were sanitizing stations. There were notes up everywhere urging people to wash their hands and to social distance, and naturally you can't go in anywhere without wearing a mask. So I think anecdotally, at least from my perspective, that is being applied, and I think everybody that I encountered on that trip was actually playing their part as well. So that was certainly good to see. I think in terms of going down on a holiday, this is something that you've got to be aware of, and if you don't play by those rules, you're not going to be allowed anywhere in. So yes, I think that is something people have got to remember.
Traveling with children has presented somewhat of a different challenge, especially people with toddlers who are now sometimes not willing to go into a store wearing a mask. And the question then becomes, to give the kid a mask or to not give them a mask, leave them in the car, what do you do?
Look, I can't speak to that. I think that's something that every individual needs to make a call on, and obviously according to the rules of whatever place or establishment they want to visit, and they need to adhere to that. That's not something that I would comment on. What I would say is if you are traveling with toddlers or with children, make sure that they are strapped in your vehicle properly, in proper child restraint systems, and that everyone, in fact, in your vehicle is wearing a seatbelt. From a perspective of before you even get out of your vehicle, that would be a priority for us.
Public transport then, extra caution needed there because you've got increased volumes of people traveling under COVID. I know at the beginning of the lockdown we were told that various taxi associations were making sure that vehicles are sanitized per trip. Again, it comes back to what you're saying, isn't it, about individual responsibility and those in the vehicles making sure that they do their best to stay as safe as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think public transport has become a bit of an issue. There may be instances where, people are not wearing their masks and there isn't proper sanitizing before you get onto that vehicle. Again, that's where personal responsibility comes into the picture. And then certainly the operator or carrier of that public transport needs to play their role by ensuring the correct amount of people are on that public transport vehicle, that there is sanitizing that happens before people get on, that windows are open because that's one of the regulations, that people are obviously wearing their masks while traveling. So, we would certainly encourage everybody who is making use of public transport to play by those rules.
As will have to be the traffic officials. We've already seen some of them manning the major routes, and this year, instead of checking just whether the wear and tear on the vehicles, they're going to have to make sure that everyone who's on a bus, a taxi, does have a mask, is spaced out as is necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's very important that people make sure their vehicles are in a good condition, but we are living in extraordinary times, Thembekile, and I would completely agree with your sentiment that if you are going to be using a taxi, and this is something we've spoken about now, is personal responsibility, and you've got to make sure that you are safe, not only because of the vehicle that you're driving in and the safety features that are in that vehicle, the seat belts that you need to be wearing, but certainly from a COVID perspective, you've got to be playing by those rules as well.
Layton Beard from the Automobile Association, always great to speak to you. Thank you.